My name is Li Ming. I used to teach high school history on Earth. Now I'm a disgraced prince. The accident on the hiking trail was the last thing I remembered clearly. A loose rock, a steep drop, the particular stillness that follows impact. When awareness returned, it came with someone else's memories layered over my own like a second skin. A cruel, indolent young man who had spent his privileged life making enemies until the court had finally grown tired of him and shipped him off to rot in a forgotten border village called West Wilderness. The continent was called Kyushu. Magic was real here, and so was constant war, and the villagers who surrounded my inherited body had spent 3 days letting me starve as quiet payback for everything the original prince had done to them. I couldn't blame them. By what I'd absorbed of his history, he deserved worse. But I wasn't him. I was near my limit, genuinely lightheaded from hunger, lying in a mud brick structure that generously called itself a house. When a mechanical voice spoke directly into my mind, calm and precise as a system notification. A panel materialized in front of me, and I understood immediately what it was. I'd read enough fantasy novels in my previous life to recognize the shape of it. A heavenly weapon system, the kind of narrative shorthand that separated the protagonist from everyone else. The gift pack contained 50 bags of grain and 3 summoning tokens. When I used the tokens, 3 soldiers appeared before me in flashes of pale light, armored and armed, and they looked at me and said, "My lord," without a trace of hesitation. I sat with that for a moment. My first mission was straightforward: defeat at least 2 monsters during the next attack on the village. The rewards listed were substantial: more food, water, additional soldiers. Everything I needed to build something real. I was starving. The logical move was obvious. Instead, I opened one of the grain bags and shared the meal with my 3 new soldiers. Their loyalty indicators shifted visibly upward the moment I did it. I filed that away. In a world where strength was currency, I'd spent enough of my previous life watching students respond to being treated like people rather than problems. The principle apparently translated across dimensions. We needed water. I led my small squad toward the mountain spring that served the village's 100 households, and found trouble waiting there instead. 4 wolf demons had the village guards pinned in a standoff at the spring. They were exactly what the name suggested: wolfish heads on upright bodies, wearing the particular arrogance of creatures that had grown accustomed to getting what they wanted. My system populated their statistics as I looked at them. Level 1 enemies, low health, low defense. Bullies operating well within their comfort zone. Their leader was demanding that the villagers hand over a person to be eaten in exchange for being left alone today. The villagers looked at the ground with the expression of people who had accepted that this was simply how things were. I stepped forward and offered myself instead. The monster leader reached for me, and I gave the signal. All 3 soldiers moved simultaneously, swords finding their marks before the creature finished its reach. The system logged the kill and credited my account with honor points and silver coins. The remaining 3 demons stared at the corpse of their leader with the specific paralysis of subordinates whose authority structure had just collapsed. They were acting alone, I realized, freelancers motivated by greed rather than any tribal directive. No backup was coming. I ordered the full attack. What followed was less a battle than a correction. The villagers, emboldened by watching someone actually fight back, grabbed their tools and joined without being asked. The wolf demons were gone quickly. The villagers stood among the results of their own courage and looked at me differently than they had 30 seconds ago. My system noted that their loyalty had jumped from 0 to 60% in a single afternoon. I instructed everyone to conceal the bodies carefully. The wolf demon tribe didn't know yet what had happened here, and I needed that window of ignorance. We weren't strong enough for the conversation that would follow if they found out. The system rewarded the completed mission generously: grain, water, and 20 summoning tokens. I stood at the spring in the afternoon light and felt, for the first time since waking up in this world, like the situation might actually be manageable. I didn't rest long before the system provided its next gift: a basic city-building token, awarded for drawing first blood. The item's description was almost casual about what it could do: reshape terrain, construct essential infrastructure, convert wasteland into functional land. The mission attached to it required me to place farmland, barracks, a training ground, and a lumber mill within the village boundaries. I went to the western edge of the village first. It was useless land, cracked, rocky, the kind of ground that had probably never grown anything. I placed the farmland token and confirmed the location. The earth moved, not violently, but with the deep, deliberate rumble of something fundamental being rearranged. The process took 30 minutes. When it finished, what had been barren rock was rich, dark soil capable of feeding 2,000 people. I stood at the edge of it and tried to absorb the scale of what I was working with. The barracks went to the northern section, rising in a single continuous construction. Watchtowers, training spaces, storage, accommodation for 500 soldiers. It appeared complete and empty, which only made the emptiness more obvious. I used all 20 summoning tokens immediately. 40 flashes of light produced 10 infantrymen, 10 shield soldiers, and 20 service soldiers. The service soldiers were a particular kind of useful. They handled logistics, cooking, and medical support, and gained experience from every task they completed, however mundane. I put them to work moving grain and water into the barrack storage and established strict rationing protocols before anyone had time to ask questions about supply. 3 soldiers that morning, 43 by evening. I added a training ground and a lumber yard to complete the mission, received another wave of rewards, 20 more service soldiers, substantial food and water, and brought my total force to 63. The lumber yard sat among the trees to the south, already producing wood and generating the beginning of an actual income stream. That night, I visited the village chief, Wu Sambao, and explained that the new buildings and armed men were the advance party of my personal forces, come to develop and protect the village. The fertile western farmland was available for cultivation immediately. He was skeptical. I told him to look in the morning. When he did, the skepticism didn't survive the encounter with 30 acres of perfect soil where rocks had been the previous day. His loyalty reading jumped to 75% before noon. The peace lasted exactly as long as it took for a messenger to arrive, shaking with fear, reporting that a commander and a dozen wolf soldiers were attacking the eastern edge of the village. I assembled the troops. When we reached the eastern side, Wu Sambao was already there with 30 well-equipped villagers holding their ground, braver than they had any right to be, though visibly relieved when my soldiers appeared behind them. The wolf demons had clearly expected their usual audience and were recalibrating quickly. The wolf commander was level 6, meaningfully stronger than the creatures we'd dealt with at the spring. It scanned my force with the calculating expression of someone doing arithmetic. "Why have you come to West Wilderness Village?" I asked. It told me 3 of their soldiers had gone missing and they were investigating. I kept my face neutral. Those 3 soldiers were hidden under my floor. Your missing people have nothing to do with us. If you're asking, the answer is no. The commander pushed. It wanted to search the village. It wanted 600 portions of grain and 3 young humans as provision. It mentioned its tribe's strength as though that was supposed to settle the conversation. I shook my head slowly. You're using a missing persons report as an excuse to rob us. I think you've mistaken our patience for weakness. You'd be wise not to make enemies of. I raised my hand and addressed my soldiers instead. All troops. The wolf demon tribe has invaded our land. Eliminate them. They charged in perfect formation, shouting in unison. Wu Sambao's villagers looked at each other for half a second, then raised their hoes and followed. The wolf commander turned and ran before the first sword was drawn. Its escorts, who had come expecting an easy shakedown, had no interest in dying for supply quotas they weren't even personally invested in. We chased them past the tree line and left 11 of them on the ground before calling the pursuit. The system registered the kills, deposited the rewards, and noted that villager goodwill had increased again. I told Wu Sambao that West Wilderness Village would only grow from here. Whatever came at us, we would face it directly. He looked at the cleared battlefield and nodded, and I think he actually believed me. With the immediate threat managed, I turned to building real military capacity. My soldiers were training on the ground every morning, but without an instructor their form was loose and their experience gains were slow. I checked the system store. One instructor, 100 honor points, and 500 silver coins. The price was painful. I bought it without deliberating too long. The instructor materialized on the training ground in a flash of white light, assessed the assembled soldiers with a single sweep of his eyes, and immediately began reorganizing them into proper formation. I felt a slight compression in my resources and reminded myself that cutting corners on soldier quality now would cost significantly more later. I activated 20 Blade Soldier tokens from a recent mission reward and added them to the roster. My combat force now stood at 43 Blade Soldiers and 10 Shield Soldiers, with 60 service personnel and support. Nearly 100 people in total, consuming approximately 200 portions of grain and 100 portions of water daily. At current stores, I had perhaps 2 weeks of supply before the situation became urgent. The farmland had been planted, but not yet harvested. The silver mine, 10 miles north, sat under Centaur occupation, its resources locked away behind a fight I wasn't quite ready to win. And a side mission had just appeared, directing me 20 miles east to a village called Dahan, where bandits were causing trouble. The rewards for the side mission included a general summoning token. I ordered a meal for everyone, let the soldiers eat while the instructor ran them through drills, and started organizing the march east. We reached Dahan around midday. From a distance, the smoke was visible above the rooftops. Up close, the scene was worse. Blood on the packed earth roads. Bodies of villagers who had been in the wrong place. Houses burning at the edges while their occupants were still inside. The bandits hadn't left yet. In the lawless borderlands, there was rarely any reason to hurry. We went in hard and fast. The bandits near the village entrance saw soldiers, actual soldiers in formation, moving with purpose, and their first instinct was pure confusion. This didn't happen here. Government troops didn't come to border villages. Something had gone wrong somewhere in their understanding of how the world worked. Soldiers, run, someone shouted, and the retreat became a rout. We cut down 4 or 5 of the slower ones before their leader emerged from a side street to take stock. He was a broad man with cold eyes and a heavy blade, and he moved with the particular economy of someone who had survived a long time by being better at violence than the people around him. His name was Chin Hui, level 4, stats that put him above ordinary soldiers, but well short of a genuine threat against my numbers. He introduced himself with the professional courtesy of someone exploring whether there was a deal to be made. He acknowledged I was Yulong Kingdom military, pointed out that the borderlands had no real governance, and suggested that what happened to a village or 2 out here wasn't worth interfering with. Then he offered me half of everything they'd taken if I stood aside. I looked at him for a moment. The original prince might have taken that deal. He'd been exactly the kind of person who would. Surrender now, I said, or face the consequences. The shield soldiers formed the front line and advanced. The sword soldiers followed through the gaps, the formation tight and disciplined in a way the bandits clearly hadn't anticipated. Chin Hui fought well. He was genuinely skilled, but skill against numbers has a ceiling, and he hit it quickly. He took 2 of my soldiers with him when he fell, which I registered with a specific kind of regret that surprised me a little. That was the nature of it. No losses was rarely possible. All I could do was try to minimize them. The system logged the battle rewards and marked the side mission complete. The general summoning token was added to my inventory. I had the soldiers collect the bandits' accumulated silver, 4,500 coins, and confiscated it formally in the name of the Yulong crown. It was technically my right as the 5th prince. The fact that it was also extremely convenient was a secondary consideration. Dahan's village chief, an elderly man named Yixing, found me after the fighting settled. His village had survived, barely, and he was measuring gratitude against caution with the wariness of someone who'd learned that people who help you sometimes want something significant in return. I told him the truth, roughly. The court was developing West Wilderness Village as a border settlement. Dahan was vulnerable to exactly what had just happened, and would be again. The practical solution was relocation. Yixing pointed out, reasonably, that Dahan was larger and better resourced than West Wilderness. Why would anyone choose to move to the smaller village? Because the smaller village now has soldiers stationed in it, I said. Farmland that appeared overnight where there used to be rocks. A lumber operation. A training ground. Infrastructure that didn't exist 2 days ago and is only going to grow. You can stay here and defend against the next group of bandits on your own, or you can join something that's actually being built. He asked for time to discuss it with the villagers. I told him to take whatever he needed. We camped in Dahan that night, ate our rations in the cool evening air, and I lay against a wall and thought about the general token in my inventory and what it would produce. We made it back to West Wilderness the following morning. Everything was intact, which I hadn't been entirely certain of when we left. I placed the command platform in a northern military zone adjacent to the barracks. It was modest in scale, but deliberate in appearance. White stone stairs ascending to a platform with a desk at the center, a register resting on it with a faint golden luminescence that made it difficult to look at directly. The system prompted me to pick it up. The register was heavier than I expected. It shivered in my hands, the golden glow fading as a name resolved itself across the surface. Wu Song. White light, and then a man stood on the platform before me. Broad-shouldered, solid, with the bearing of someone who had spent a long time doing physically demanding things and had become very good at all of them. Your Majesty, Wu Song said, bowing with genuine sincerity. I humbly greet you. I looked at his data. Health talent, 8. Attack talent, 9. A fighter built for the front of a battle, not the back. Exactly what I needed. No formalities, General. Guide me well. The system chimed an achievement notification. First general obtained, and delivered a bonus reward of summoning tokens, grain, and water. I spent the tokens immediately, cycling through the flashes of light until my roster was filled out. 90 sword soldiers, 50 shield bearers, 60 service personnel, 1 general. Nearly 200 people consuming 400 portions of grain daily. The fields were still weeks from harvest. The silver mine was still occupied. The wolf demon tribe was still out there, recalibrating their approach after their last embarrassment. I transferred everything from my system inventory to the physical storage and stood in the command tent alone for a moment, looking at the numbers. Then I sent 2 service soldiers, quick, attentive men named Qin Xiao and Qin Lang, north to scout the silver mine's defenses. They returned with confirmation that the site was held by a centaur tribe numbering over 100 human upper bodies and horse lower bodies, axes and spears, famously resistant to physical assault, but vulnerable to magic I didn't yet have access to. I appointed Qin Xiao and Qin Lang as my personal guards and told them to wait outside my tent for orders. Wu Sambao came by in the late afternoon, curious about the army's expedition and the growing shape of the village. I told him Dean's people would be arriving to settle and that the southwest wasteland needed to be converted to housing before they came. He agreed with the slightly resigned cooperation of someone who had decided the reformed Fifth Prince was probably not going away. The next morning brought clear skies and a system notification. Once the village population reached 500, a first-level school would become available. I filed that away for when the Dahan relocation was complete. Then a villager came running from the eastern edge, and the expression on his face told me everything before he spoke. The wolf demon tribe, he said. East side, more than last time. I had Wu Song and 140 soldiers assembled and moving within minutes. When we reached the east side of the village, I saw what the wolves had left behind, for villagers dead on the ground, cut down when they tried to talk. Wu Sambao was standing over them, white-faced, and when he saw my army arrive, his expression shifted from grief to something harder. I told him to take the remaining villagers back. He did, and didn't argue. The wolf demon commander across the field was the same level 6 officer from before, the one who had come previously to leverage the missing soldiers incident. He was scanning my forces with an expression that suggested his intelligence on West Wilderness Village was significantly out of date. I walked forward with Wu Song on my shoulder. You killed our people without provocation, I said. Those 4 villagers were not soldiers. You owe us an explanation. The commander started to respond, and I talked over him. I'll tell you something directly. The Yulon Kingdom's High Command is paying close attention to this territory's development. Every soldier you see here is part of that initiative. If the Wolf Demon Tribe wants a war with the court's designated garrison, that's a decision your chief needs to make consciously, not something your forward units stumble into. It was fabrication entirely. The high officials of a human race couldn't have found West Wilderness on a map. But the commander didn't know that, and the doubt crossed his face visibly. Before he could settle on a response, I ordered the attack. Wu Song's sword was out before I finished the sentence. The formation locked into position, shields forward, long blades driving through the gaps, and advanced with the steady, grinding momentum of something that had been properly drilled. The wolf demons looked at the organized wall moving toward them and made a calculation. The commander turned and ran, and his soldiers followed. We chased them into the tree line and killed 35 before the pursuit ended. The commander escaped, which was fine. I needed him to go back to his tribe, carrying exactly the story I'd planted, that this poor border village had official backing, real soldiers, and no fear of escalation. Whether it was true didn't matter. What mattered was whether he believed it. The system marked the mission complete and deposited the rewards. The strategist's summoning token landed in my inventory alongside a talent-seeking platform to use it with. I placed the new platform next to the command installation in the northern zone. It was slightly more elegant than its neighbor. The same white stairs, but the desk at the top held a different kind of register, heavier and somehow more particular about being handled carefully. I picked it up. A name appeared, Fong Xinling. The light came, and with it a composed, scholarly man in clean robes who bowed with precise courtesy and introduced himself by name. I recognized the name from the original prince's absorbed memories, a figure his older brother Lai Sherman had once praised as having the rare combination of strategic foresight and administrative capability. Someone who had managed the capital while his patron led campaigns. Someone who knew how to build things that lasted. I looked at his data. Internal Affairs Advisor. Annual grain harvest up 10%. Fiscal income up 10%. Soldier and civilian loyalty up 10 points per year. Passive improvements, compounding over time, exactly the kind of foundation that made everything else possible. I am Xinling, he said, meeting my eyes with calm intelligence. I am at your service, my lord. I looked at my territory. 200 soldiers training to the north. New farmland in the west. A lumber operation to the south. Housing being cleared in the southwest for a village full of people who were already on their way. A silver mine 10 miles out that I wasn't quite ready to take yet, but would be. A general who fought. A strategist who built. We have a great deal of work to do, I said. Fong Xinling looked at the horizon with the expression of someone who had been waiting for an interesting problem. Then we should begin, he said. The system's suggestion about Fong Xinling was immediate and practical. Appoint him village chief of West Wilderness. Let his advisor skills take root in the territory's foundation and watch the compounding benefits accumulate over time. I didn't deliberate. Yes. The confirmation came with an achievement notification, first official appointment, and deposited 10 cavalry summoning talismans, 500 units of fodder, 5,000 units of grain, and 2,000 units of water in my inventory before I'd finished reading the prompt. I found Fong Xinling at the base of the talent-seeking platform and told him directly, "You're the village chief of West Wilderness from this moment. All village affairs are yours to manage. I trust your judgment." He bowed with the composed sincerity of someone who intended to earn that trust rather than simply accept it. "I will not disappoint you, my lord." I drafted the official announcement in the command tent, had Qin Xiao deliver it alongside Fong Xinling to Wu Sambao, and spent a few minutes thinking about the shape of what I was building. Wu Sambao had served his village faithfully under difficult circumstances, and retiring him wasn't a slight. It was the natural progression of a territory outgrowing the limits of what one elderly village chief could manage. Fong Xinling would handle construction of the Dahan housing, adjudicate disputes, oversee resource allocation, and gain experience with every decision he made. By the time West Wilderness became a town, then a city, his capabilities would have grown with it. Even a small place needs to be properly equipped from the start. I checked my inventory before leaving the tent. 10 cavalry talismans, 20 infantry talismans, 30 archer talismans, 11,000 units of grain, 6,200 units of spring water, 500 units of horse fodder. Half a day's worth of missions and appointments had built a stockpile that would have seemed impossible when I woke up in this world starving. I looked at the numbers for a moment, then used every summoning talisman at once. 60 soldiers appeared in flashes of white light. The cavalry came first, 10 riders on actual war horses, armed with spears and lances, sitting their mounts with the natural ease of people who had been born into the saddle. Then 30 archers with full quivers and the kind of arm development that comes from years of drawing serious weight. Then 20 infantry to add to my existing ground force. I watched the archers and thought briefly about resupply costs. Arrows weren't free, and a territory operating on thin margins couldn't afford to treat ammunition as infinite. I filed the concern away, for after the silver mine was secured, I sent all 60 to the barracks and transferred the food stores. The system calculated the updated survival window. Soldier survival days extended by 42. Over a month of breathing room. I felt something unclench in my chest that I hadn't fully noticed was tense. The next morning began with news I hadn't anticipated. Fong Xinling found me at the training ground before the sun had fully cleared the eastern treeline. A wounded soldier had arrived, a human border guard insignia, being treated in the medical tent. The injury was serious enough that he needed help walking. I followed Fong Xinling to the tent and looked at the man on the cot. His shirt was dark with dried blood, and his expression carried the particular exhaustion of someone who had been moving on adrenaline for too long and had just run out. "Are you from the border guard?" I asked. He looked at my face and sat up straighter despite the pain. "You're the 5th prince. The only person exiled to West Wilderness is me, yes. Tell me what happened." He told me. The emperor's illness had progressed to unconsciousness. The court was fracturing along factional lines, everyone jockeying for position in the transition. The neighboring nation, Da'in, had read the situation correctly and moved immediately. 60,000 soldiers pressing against the kingdom's border while its defenders argued about chain of command. The border garrison had 50,000, but internal disputes had strangled their supply lines. Food was short. Equipment was running out. The scout had been gathering intelligence when the Da'in cavalry cut him off, and he'd spent the better part of a day bleeding and running before he stumbled into my territory. Fong Xinling shook his head slowly. Internal chaos and external invasion at the same moment. The kingdom is facing a genuine crisis. I stood with that information for a while. 200 soldiers against 60,000. The arithmetic was not complicated. Even setting aside the scale problem, my territory was barely established. We were weeks from our first harvest, still integrating to Han's population, still training recruits toward functional combat levels. Marching my entire force to the border would accomplish nothing except getting them all killed and leaving West Wilderness undefended. The honest truth was that Yulong would have to manage this without me, at least for now. The kingdom's foundation was old enough that it wouldn't collapse overnight, even under this kind of pressure. I had time to build something real before the situation reached the point where my 200 soldiers would matter. What I could do was not ignore the opportunity sitting in front of me. "What's your name?" I asked the wounded scout. He hesitated fractionally before answering. "Kang Su." I checked his stats automatically. Level 16, elite tier, the equivalent of a veteran who had been through multiple career progressions. His speed talent was exceptional. As a scout, his intelligence gathering capability was significantly beyond anything my current service soldiers could provide. The hesitation had told me everything I needed to know about his feelings on the matter. The 5th prince's reputation had preceded me, apparently. A lazy, troublesome exile with a history of poor decisions was not an obvious master to voluntarily attach yourself to. I put a hand briefly on his shoulder. "Heal first. Don't make any decisions while you're bleeding." I paused at the tent entrance. "But when you're ready, take a walk around the village. Then tell me what you think." I spent the midday hours in the command tent running calculations on the silver mine problem. The Centaur tribe, holding the mine, numbered over 100. Their individual combat levels clustered around 5 and 6, regular soldier tier, meaningfully above most of my current force. They were built for close combat and difficult to hurt through conventional means, with no particular weakness except magical attack, which I didn't have access to yet.